Welcome to Batshit, a frank and funny look at living with mental illness.
Oh, my turn.
You'd think he'd never done this before.
While we'll touch on several illnesses, Batshit is focused on those along the spectrum of bipolar disorders. I'm your host, Adam.
And I'm your other host, Brad.
And we're both bipolar. So strap in and let's see how batshit we really are.
Spoiler alert, pretty damn batshit. This episode's topic, Listener Questions Part 2.
Part 2!
So we promised that this would be a recurring type of episode, and you're getting hit with it again.
Yeah, because the second we did the first one, we started getting flooded with questions, which is amazing. Now, we want to start by saying we are not offering medical advice. We are not offering educated advice. We are offering empathy and opinions and experience. That's all we are offering. So I encourage anyone who has a question to make sure to seek a medical professional, be that a psychologist, psychiatrist, your medical doctor. You know, don't take the word of two jackasses on a podcast as scripture. But we're happy to share our experiences and hope it helps you.
And especially if it's something urgent. We're trying to get to questions as fast as we can, but we record these episodes well in advance.
Yep.
Several of them back to back. So by the time you're listening to an episode, it could have been 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Since you'd written us. And if you have an urgent question, especially talk to your doctor, talk to a medical professional. And if you're having thoughts of harming yourself or someone else, please dial 988, the suicide hotline on your cell phone, and speak to someone. It's okay that you're having those thoughts because that's what we're struggling with.
Right.
But make sure you get help. Don't wait for us to come on and tell bad jokes.
Yeah, real bad jokes.
Horrible. Just the worst, man.
Okay. All right. So our first question today, we got a voice message, which is awesome. Their name is Devin. I'm going to play it for you now, and then, we'll give you our 2 cents.
I was just diagnosed with bipolar, and I have started a few different meds, and I'm coming out of a pretty severe episode, and I'm wondering how long it takes someone to get into a more normal state on meds. Like, how long do these meds take to start working, and how well do they really work?
Oh, man, Devin.
Yeah. So again, first thing, have this conversation with your doctor.
Yes, definitely do. I can give you my personal experience. So when I first started meds, it took about 2 weeks before, and this is straight off my psychiatrist's notebook. They were like, it's going to be about 2 weeks until you notice any sort of difference. And the really tricky thing about our illness is that you may not notice it right away. You may not even notice it until you start experience another episode, because that's kind of the nature of what we're dealing with. But personally, I experienced a shift about 2 weeks in. Now, that being said, I recently had my Lamictal's been increased quite a bit recently, and I noticed that earlier, right? Like it only took that about 3 or 4 days for me to notice a change. But keep in mind that what your body is doing is you're tweaking your brain's chemistry by taking these drugs, and that takes time to adjust. So, at least 2 weeks, Devin.
And also, depending on the drug, I'm not sure what you've been prescribed. They can take a while to build up in your system, and then you also have to slowly titrate up with some of them.
Right.
So again, Adam was talking about us being on Lamictal, or lamotrigine is the generic term for it. I was just reading the other day because I forgot to take my dose one day. And I was like, I was freaking out about it. And I looked it up, and it takes 14 days to clear your system.
Yep.
So I would imagine, like you said, it takes 2 weeks to build up. I started with 25 milligrams. I was on that for 2 or 3 weeks, and then my doctor upped it to 50, another few weeks, and then upped it to 75. And for me, it was at the 75 milligram mark that my brain started calming.
Sure.
A bit. I'm now at 125.
Yeah.
Because, as you guys have heard on previous episodes, we've had depressive episodes recently, and I told my psychiatrist about that. And I went to my psychiatrist, and I was like, give me an antidepressant. This is horrible. I need an antidepressant. She was like, whoa. Let's hold on. Let's not just throw a bunch of things at you at once. Let's continue. You seem to be doing well on the lamotrigine.
Right.
Let's up that. But you have to give it time. I know again, I'm not sure what all you're on. I know lithium requires time to build up in the system.
Yes.
Um,
I think
and-
I can't think of one right now that doesn't take time.
Yeah, that I haven't. I mean, maybe I'm not as
But-
familiar with the antipsychotics,
Right, or anti-anxiety. Those are definitely going to be different.
Yeah.
But yes, from the experience that we've had, I think 2 weeks. The other thing, Devin, please keep in mind, if you're just starting medication, the medication they give you right off the bat may not be the quick fix, or may not be what you need to get right.
or may only be a piece.
Or
You
maybe
might
even
need
be a
something in
piece of
addition
it.
to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I was saying in one of the episodes, I was on Wellbutrin, just Wellbutrin, for 3 years, 4 years prior to them figuring out I also need the Lamictal. And I just got increased from 100 to 200 milligrams of Lamictal.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was actually kind of unsettling because what they did was my doc, talking to my psychiatrist, and she and my psychologist talk. And so a psychiatrist calls me up and she's like, "Oh, I talked to the doctor and he said this, and yeah, tell me about the episode you had." And I relate it. And she goes, "Okay, let's go from 100 to 150. And I'm like, "All right, doc, that's what you think's right. Let's give it a try." Like 2 or 3 days goes by, and I get like 3 calls like back to back, and I'm in meetings, so I couldn't take them. And then eventually, I was able to call her back, and she's like, "I just talked to your psychologist. Let's make it 200 milligrams." And I'm like, "Oh,
What did they say?
oh, I don't know." I was like, unsettling. But yeah, so I just started 200 milligrams today, so we'll see what happens. I've been on the 150 now for 2 weeks, and I haven't had the last real depressive episode was during the check-in that we just fired off. We just fired it up, but recorded it several weeks ago. So far I'm doing okay.
I'd read, and this was anecdotal. This was other people talking.
Right. First of all, good for you for reading.
Yeah. I finally learned.
Yeah, good for you, buddy.
It took a while, but which really made writing difficult for me.
It's really tough. I know, like reading your books has been a challenge.
Yeah. I finally realized I was just using wingdings all the time. But, no, I was reading, and this was just anecdotal. It was on like Facebook or Reddit or something. And but a lot of people were saying that the standard therapeutic dose starts at 150 milligrams,
Interesting.
and there are people who are taking 450.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, the
So-
Wellbutrin I'm on is 450, and supposedly that's a really high dosage.
Yeah,
That's what I've been told. But then, here's another thing, Devin, like talking to my psychologist and my psychiatrist, who hasn't known me as long, is like, we should really revisit your diagnosis. You may not be true bipolar. And I'm like, awesome. So all this work I've done is for naught? And he's like, no. I'm not saying you're not on the spectrum of bipolar, but it's a wide spectrum. So maybe the way we're currently treating it is incorrect. I'm like, oh my.
so they're thinking maybe you're like cyclothymic. Or-
Maybe.
There's also a fourth category
Yeah.
of bipolar that's called something like bipolar disorder not yet categorized.
Yeah, which is just very comforting.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to have powers like an X-Man. I mean,
So I'll tell you, this is total like bullshit theory I came up with. the other day.
Ooh.
But
You guys can't see it, but he just put on a doctor's coat and a stethoscope.
yeah, I carry them around. You never know when you need them. Anytime a pregnant woman passes, I'm like, "Did your water break?" No. So since we've started this, and since I got diagnosed, and was open about it, I've discovered a lot of people in my extended circle who suffer from something.
Sure.
And one thing that I noticed is that there are several people who have both anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
Clinical anxiety and depression. And again, this is just my own bullshit theory, but it actually, when you talk about bipolar being on a spectrum, it made me wonder if that's being looked at wrong and that's a form of bipolar.
Sure.
Because anxiety, sometimes you experience anxiety in mania.
Oh, yeah.
There's all sorts of the other symptoms that we've talked about in mania. But could their anxiety basically be low-key mania? That they're not getting the euphoria and everything, but they're getting the adrenaline
Sure.
that comes with it.
Yeah, it's an adrenaline surge.
Yeah. But I just found that really interesting that clinical anxiety and clinical depression, at least anecdotally, seem to be paired a lot.
Yeah. See, this this science and this treatment is still evolving. And Devin, I feel for you. I do. Please don't give up. Please stick with it. I mean, the number of times that I've wanted to just get off the meds because I don't think the meds are working, or maybe the meds are causing this, and it never goes well. It never, ever goes well. So please, keep trying, keep the faith, keep fighting, and listen to your doctors. They spent a lot of money on school. They went for a long time.
They're still in debt.
Yeah, they're going to be in debt for the rest of their lives. So they deserve us at least listening a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'd give it, and this is totally not a medically experienced opinion. This is just my personal opinion.
He's added a red clown nose on top of the doctor's coat, just so you know.
Wasn't that like a Robin Williams?
It was a Robin Williams thing, yeah.
Who by the way, they think was probably bipolar.
At least, yes.
Totally makes. I mean, you talk about somebody manic.
Oh my god! Oh man, you watch his old stand-up?
Oh, but I would give it at least 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I would recommend also, I've talked about this before, buying a mood journal and using that to track your moods.
Yep.
And then when you talk to your doctor again, you can say you've got concrete evidence. You can be like, look, I've still been miserable, 5 days out of 7 or whatever. Or, hey doc, I'm noticing, at first I was marking myself as miserable and now I'm just kind of meh.
Yeah.
Every day. And, and all that information will be incredibly helpful to your doctor, whether it's about upping your dose, adding a new drug, or changing your drugs.
Right. And I think about that pain chart that you see in the emergency room, where it's got like the 0 to 10 in terms of how much pain you're in. Mm-hmm. Having that similar, chart for yourself with how you're feeling could go a long way, like Brad said, into helping your doctor treat you. So, yeah mood journal's a great idea. Good job, Dr. Brad.
Ding, ding.
Okay.
The red nose.
Again, not a doctor. He is an actor, though. So if you need an actor for an upcoming project, Brad is available.
I'll send you my headshots.
What makes us laugh?
I would also recommend, and I'm not sure because you didn't mention this, but if you're not in therapy, the therapy and the drugs go together.
Huge.
Yeah.
And
you can't do one without the other.
Right.
You'll never make any progress.
And here's the interesting thing, Devin, going back to my psychologist, is like talking with my psychologist and talking with my psychiatrist are two very different experiences, Psychiatrist it's a medical doctor. So they're going to be like, so what are your symptoms? And you're going to say, well, I feel X. And they're going to take that information and give you a drug based on that. Now, your psychologist, on the other hand, is going to sit there and be like, let's talk about how you feel and really get the verbiage right and really dissect the way you're feeling. And, there's a lot of different spots on that spectrum of bipolar. And the more dialed in you can be, the better the treatment will be with the medication. So having that conversation with a psychologist is going to help you talk to your psychiatrist, and they can talk together, like my two do, and they talk probably behind my back quite a bit. Like I have this theory that they meet up on Fridays with like a bottle of wine. And like,
did you guys see what Adam's doing with his hair these days?
And he's doing a podcast. Oh, jeez. But yes, so yeah, talk to a psychologist.
I've not told anyone on my team that I am doing a podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've kept that completely
that's amazing.
Separate. I don't know why. I just don't.
I kind of brag about it. I'll be honest. I'm like, hey, look at me. I'm dealing with my problems, doctors.
I think maybe just because I'm still so new in this process.
Sure.
You were talking about the different conversations you have with your psychiatrist and your therapist, and I remember one of the first conversations I had with my psychiatrist. I was like, well, so I got all this guilt. Right, like there are people I hurt, and like I've got this one friend, and she was like, whoa, I just handle your drugs.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, exactly. Like you need to see a therapist.
Yes, so true. Devin. All right, Brad. What's next, question wise?
So our next one, this one's a little sad.
Oh.
This was from Apocalypse 61 on Reddit,
mm-hmm.
which I say we shit on Reddit a lot. on here in other places. It's not the community that we're shitting on.
No, there's amazing people. in that Reddit
amazing
community.
people sharing their stories and their experience. But that's where it should end. And the problem with anything online, we keep pointing out Reddit because,
It's an easy target. It's a
yeah,
softball lob.
but Facebook, Twitter, like whatever, is a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about and present it as fact.
Right.
When there are legitimate resources you can go to.
Yeah. We have not presented a single fact on this podcast. I hope you know that. There are no facts here. It's like...
Yeah, I will reiterate. I do a lot of research. I do a lot of reading. Take nothing I say at face value.
Yep.
Research it yourself independently.
And how?
Because I am fallible.
Yes, yeah.
That's
As my wife tells me every damn day.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so this is from Apocalypse 61. My best friend just died a couple weeks ago. He had BPD and struggled with poor care, bad access to medication, destroyed relationships. The meds they put him on wrecked his body and his mind, and now he's gone. I wish he had a community of people who could have helped him. It was mostly just me and his sons. He was always so ashamed to ask for help. I miss him so much. Thank you for trying something, anything. I hope it helps someone.
This wasn't a question, obviously, but it resonated so hard with Brad and myself that we wanted to talk about it because I completely understand what you're saying and you're wanting to help. There's no answer for this question. I wish there was. It's like you're not at fault. What's at fault is society and the way we've handled these issues over the past millennia. Okay, so I know I'm not going to tell you not to feel shame because you're going to feel shame and guilt because that's just how we're wired. But please keep in mind that that's not on you. That's not on you, and it's not on your friend's sons, and that's not fully on him either.
And I know it's small comfort right now, but even if he never vocalized it to you, know that you being there for him meant so much.
Yes, well said.
Because this fight that we're in feels so lonely sometimes.
Yeah, and we push people away.
Yeah.
We push people away. So if you were strong enough to be with him through all of this and to be his support, to help be his support system and to, resist his every effort to push you away and destroy your relationship, good on you. We need more people in the world like you.
And that brought him comfort
very much
and love,
so.
even if he couldn't vocalize it.
Yeah, if he couldn't show it to you, depending on the state he was in. But
it may have kept him around longer.
Yeah, definitely. When I'm in my worst episodes and my wife is trying to help me, I do not react to it. That does not mean I don't register it. That doesn't mean I don't go, oh, she loves me so much. She is trying so hard to help me. I'm just not able to respond in the way that you should be able to respond when someone does something nice and caring and loving for you.
Yeah.
It's
like we've talked about before. Sometimes in these states, you can't communicate properly.
No, yeah.
And so you could be feeling something very strong and very powerful, and it's the connection between your brain and your mouth is just severed.
Yeah.
At that moment.
Yeah, so I'm so sorry from us to you for what you went through, what your friend went through, what his sons are going through. That's awful. It's not fair. But the fact that you're listening to this, and I hope, if I don't know how old his sons are, but if it's appropriate, sharing this podcast with his sons, might be a good idea. Even if it's just to help give some background to what maybe their dad was going through that he couldn't vocalize. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, and don't be afraid for you to seek help, by the way. You may not associate with the disorders, or you may not feel like you have a mental disease. It doesn't mean you don't need to talk to someone.
we've talked about that before, that people who have someone in their life who suffers from this also need to seek therapy.
Yeah.
If you're close to that person. And especially with a tragedy like this having occurred, you should go speak to someone. His sons should speak to someone.
Yes, definitely.
You need to get that out. I can tell from your message, there's a lot of shame and a lot of guilt and a lot of regret that you need to address. And that's not to say it's going to go away.
No,
but
it won't.
But you need to work through it.
Yeah.
And understand it
Mm-hmm.
and know what things were completely beyond your control.
Yep. Thank you for sharing that with us, because that's going to help a lot of people. You sharing this story, sharing what your friend went through, what his sons went through. There are people out there listening to this podcast who are in all three of those positions. And just, hearing your voice is going to help. So thank you.
Yeah. And stay strong. I know it's tough.
Yeah, stay
but,
as positive as you can.
Yeah. And get some help.
Yep.
All right. So the last thing I want to jump into here isn't a listener question.
Oh.
It's from renowned author Joyce Carol Oates.
Ooh!
Today. I told Adam I was in a little bit of a Twitter war.
So here's the thing, you guys. So Brad texted me today, and he was like, "I'm in a Twitter fight." And I'm like, "You're in a Twitter fight?" Because I'm not on Twitter. And he's like, "Yeah. Joyce doesn't know what's coming for her." And I'm sitting there going, "Good for you, buddy." And then 20 minutes later, I'm like, "Wait, does she know you're in a fight, or what's going on?"
Yeah, no. So I usually don't engage with people online very much at all. I mean, we've talked about how horrible we are at social media.
We're trying to get better. We are trying.
Yeah. My social media presence is log on for 5 minutes, scroll and see if there's anything interesting in the news, log off. Hey, I thought of a funny joke. Let me post it.
Exactly.
Like, that's about it.
I just look at pictures of dogs. That's what gets me. That's about 9% of it.
So Joyce Carol Oates is a very, very good author. She's one of my favorite writers, still living, and is notorious for being horrible on social media. My favorite example I will give you before we get into this is several years ago, someone had shared a picture of Steven Spielberg on the set of Jurassic Park next to the Triceratops that's on its side.
Yeah.
And he was, I think, wearing a safari hat and holding a rifle as though he'd killed it.
Oh, God.
She retweeted it saying something like, this type of trophy hunting for sport is animal abuse and blah, blah, blah. And everybody was like, Joyce, it's a Triceratops. So just so you understand who you're dealing with. So she tweeted this today, and I wanted to address this. Just think, 100 years ago, virtually no one was depressed, in quotation marks, because the notion hadn't come to them, nor the proviso that it was a way of bonding with other people by acknowledging or seeming to acknowledge a common weakness kept private and secret by most people sensibly. And then she doubled down on it.
Which you should.
There should be a new way to approaching depression, assuming that if it exists, it is justified and purposeful, a normal reaction to negative, stressful, unbearable social conditions. The, quote, depressed person, unquote, is not so much ill as coping, reacting to an unnatural situation.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
Where
to even begin?
Okay, for starters, everyone is entitled to their opinion.
Yes.
Everyone is entitled to their opinion. Their opinion may be wrong, but they're entitled to it.
And we're entitled to our opinion that they're assholes.
Oh, man, that's just... Okay, so first of all, let's start at the top, where she said 100 years ago, no one had depression. I'm like, oh, right, because, 100 years ago, no one was gay. right?
No one was coming back from World War One
Yep,
with
yep.
shell shock.
No,
In 1923.
right. Women didn't want to vote back then 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
No one committed suicide.
Nope, no one did that
Yeah.
either, right? There's that's just the you can't start an argument. But let me give you a piece of advice, people who are about to make an argument about anything. Don't reference history. It's a terrible place to start any argument from,
Because you can find anything that's happening now has always been happening.
It's always been happening.
In fact, I'll tell you the idea of a Twitter war.
Mm.
Somebody was texting with me the other day, and they were like, this is like one of the worst things of modern society. And I was like, well, in the 1920s, Harry Houdini and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who created Sherlock Holmes, waged basically a Twitter war by writing editorials against each other in the New York Times for years.
Yeah, it's like what yellow journalism was between politicians.
Yeah,
it's like that's
like this shit's always existed.
It's always existed, as has mental disorders.
I mean, how can anyone look at historical figures? I mean, you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
Hemingway.
Oh God, Van Gogh,
Lord Byron, Percy Shelley.
Yeah. There's
King George.
Yes. Now,
I mean, there's a whole movie, The Madness of King George.
It's in the title of the movie. I'm glad you're fighting the good fight against Joyce.
Joyce Carol Oates.
Thank you so much.
Well, the reason I wanted to bring that up and why I responded so vehemently to her is, unfortunately, her opinions are common.
Yes. Yeah.
The idea that depression, quote, if it exists. So the idea that depression might not even exist.
Yeah,
This is a medical condition with physical markers, not just psychological markers. We've talked about this before. There are physical markers that go along with depression. There have been tens of thousands of studies over decades. 70% of all suicides are committed by someone who has been diagnosed with either unipolar or bipolar depression. Mm-hmm. And I'd wager you great money that the other 30% are just undiagnosed.
Sure.
And so you take this idea of if it exists, first off. I don't even know what else to say about that level of ignorance.
Okay, look. If you are in the wild and you say, look, there are no bears in the woods. There's no bears. There's just no bears. Because I've never seen one. So there are no bears in the woods. And someone goes, well, no, bears live. They shit in the woods too. But bears are in the woods. You just saying there's no bears in the woods doesn't make it true. And by you failing to acknowledge that there are bears in the woods, you're making it more dangerous for everyone else in that camp.
Yeah.
Everyone else in that camp, because people are going to start listening to you, and they're going to start covering themselves in like deer blood and go running through the forest in the hopes that, and being completely confident that bears don't exist. You saying that mental disorders are not a thing, that depression is not a thing, and any of your listeners will sit there and be like, okay, I'm not depressed. Depression's not a thing. This is just a coping mechanism, and I just have to fight my way through it. So I'm not going to get help. I'm not going to take medication. You're letting someone run through the woods covered in deer blood with bears all around. That wasn't the greatest metaphor, but I didn't hate it. Like,
No. It's pretty good.
It's not bad.
You know what I actually thought of while you were saying that? Because watching the Harry Potter movies with my kids for like the 5th time. One of the best franchises, I have to say, movie franchises.
We could talk about what's her name?
Oh, J.K. Rowling is a different beast
right.
altogether.
Speaking of Twitter wars, sorry, keep going.
Seriously, but it's the Ministry of Magic. Like how the entire time they're like, Voldemort's not.
It's not
back.
real. It's not back.
Yeah, the Dark Lord isn't around. Blah blah blah. And it's like I just fought him. You saw it.
I'm bleeding. My uncle's dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then and it's what was that movie that Adam McKay just made about the asteroid coming towards?
Don't Look Up.
Don't Look Up.
Yeah.
Now that's about the environment. That's not about mental health, but it's the same idea, right? And when that asteroid's about to hit Earth, no one says I'm wrong. No one says, I'm sorry. They go down with the damn ship.
It's what we've talked about before, arrogant ignorance.
Yep.
You're ignorant, you're arrogant in your ignorant opinion, and you double down on it when presented with any evidence to the contrary.
We're both going to be talking. Yep.
Talking.
Right, now we're good. All right, so we're recording. So you can pick up where you just left off. Okay.
So with this arrogant ignorance, you hear all sorts of things from these mental disorders aren't real. I don't think that they work that way. Like I've heard that before.
Sure.
It's like,
yeah.
oh, really? Where's your medical degree from, pal? You don't think they work? I fucking live with this shit.
Yeah,
Let me tell you how it works.
Where's your case studies? Have you done
Yeah.
any case studies?
Yeah. But that's where it comes from is a lot of this you just can't understand if you haven't experienced it.
Yeah.
You know? And so when someone like Joyce Carol Oates thinks of depression, we've talked about this before, they think of sadness.
Mm-hmm.
That she thinks people are just sitting around being sad. All these people are so sad. Why are you so sad? Just get out of it. Be happy.
Oh, God, her voice is grating.
Oh, yeah. I imagine that's what she sounds like if you look at her picture.
Which is funny because when she writes, I have a totally different voice for her in my head. But yeah, when she talks.
I feel like I was on a panel with her at some convention or something.
Really?
Before, but I don't remember a damn thing about it. I was probably manic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so going back to the original, if anyone tells you that you're not sick, fuck them.
Yeah.
Fuck them.
Yeah.
They're not you.
Yeah. And you know what? At this point, I don't know. I go back and forth. Like I said, I wanted to comment on that because the level of ignorance is so dangerous there. But at the same time, are you ever going to change these people's opinion?
No, you probably won't.
I feel like in a public forum like that, it's more about presenting that information for other people who stumble upon it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if anyone will ever change her opinion on that.
Well, also, it's an emotional. It's not
it's not an informed opinion.
It's
an emotional response.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They are just responding emotionally to a prompt. And it's like other hot button topics. You know what I mean? Wherever you stand on a hot button topic, everything from like immigration, abortion, gun control, all of it. Oftentimes, people react emotionally to these situations. And, we are not getting into politics on this show. We won't even touch it. But it's really hard to have a discord with either side if no one's listening and everyone's just yelling back and forth at each other. Right. So, if Joyce wants to be in her echo chamber and only talking to the people like her who believe, more power to you. But the second someone who's on the fence about how they feel or what they need or trying to decide how they want to handle it stumbles upon that and maybe takes it for gospel, fuck you, Joyce.
Yeah. Completely. And her whole thing about saying it's a weakness that it was always sensibly kept private.
Kept private.
That's a big fuck you.
Yeah, seriously.
First off, weakness? Kiss my ass,
Yeah.
Joyce. I got more strength than my goddamn pinky finger.
Let's do push-ups, Joyce.
Yeah, come on. Let's
you
do
and
it.
me, Joyce.
What can you bitch, Joyce?
yeah. You squat, Joyce? Let's do this. I'm gonna go around, but wouldn't that be amazing though if we met Joyce and she was ripped out of her mind,
Yeah. She's like, I just competed in the CrossFit Games.
Oh.
But then also the idea of sensibly kept to yourself.
Yeah, no.
That's what drives people to kill themselves.
Yeah, you have to talk about this. You have to. Otherwise you go crazy. Not from your mental disorder, but because of you not knowing how to deal with your mental disorder and that you think you're all alone in this world. And you're not. No one is alone.
And that's one of the things that drove me nuts when I saw it that I think really pissed me off is because the first thing I imagined, because she's an incredibly acclaimed author.
Yep.
So imagine that's your favorite author. You're struggling with depression and you've been having suicidal ideation for the last week. And you log onto Twitter and you see that shit from your favorite author.
Gah.
You know?
Gah. It hurts. Don't. This is really it's funny. It's kind of hard for me to phrase because, like you said, Reddit has an amazing community, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's an amazing community on Reddit. And a lot of information can go back and forth there, whether it be stories, medical experience, all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, no matter what, take anyone's opinion with a grain of salt, ours included.
Yeah, if somebody throws a piece of information at you and it sounds good, don't just stop there.
Yeah, don't
just accept that.
Yep.
Go do a little bit of research.
Yeah.
And we've talked about before, some sites are better than others. You
Sure.
have to kind of learn to parse the internet. Some of these things you come across are going to look legitimate and be bullshit.
Yeah.
So, I always say, look for somewhere in whatever you're reading that it references peer-reviewed research.
Yes. And I want to reiterate, don't waste your mental energy or your physical energy trying to convince someone like Oates that you're not sick. Like it's Brad's Twitter war that he wants to start, as long as it doesn't start draining his mental health, because think of all the vitriol that's going to come back at Brad when he starts this Twitter war.
Yeah, I call it a Twitter war. It was like 5 tweets of me being like, here's some actual science, lady.
But
you'd think as a writer she would understand research.
Yeah, no. She doesn't do that. She's got people for that.
Yeah.
But again, opinions are just opinions. Your experience is your experience. Remember that. Please keep writing us questions. Please keep sending them. Through our social media is the best way to hit us up. We have a Instagram account, which I haven't really posted to yet, but I'm working on it, called Mental Health is Batshit. We have a Twitter account, which is Batshit Podcast. And we also have a Facebook, which is just Batshit Podcast. So, and we're on YouTube. So we're all over the place. So,
And Reddit.
And Reddit.
We have a Reddit thread.
Reach out to us. We want to hear your questions. We want to hear your experiences, and
leave us more voice messages,
please. Yes. I want to be able to respond to them. I cannot respond to them. I'm sorry. I called Spotify. I yelled at Spotify because there were several where, that's where Devin's came from. And I wanted to be like, Devin, oh, you're heard. I totally hear what you're saying. But I couldn't reach out. And I apologize for that. But please keep writing us questions. Keep giving us your thoughts. Keep giving us your adulation, because our egos are so fragile.
But, Adam jokes, but it really is so touching when you guys reach out and tell us how much we're helping you.
Yeah,
just by listening to us be jackasses.
Because we are jackasses every day.
Yeah,
and no one comes up to us and is like, "Thank you for being a jackass."
I'm never in the grocery store and somebody's like, "Hey, thanks for that joke about the banana."
Yeah.
That really made my day.
Now I just picture Brad standing there in the produce section, looking around, waiting for someone to come pick a banana so he can tell his bad dad joke.
Yeah, I'm sitting there with a mic. I'm like, "Hey, you guys ever eat apples? What's with apples?
What's up with apples? What's the deal with apples?"
Oh, also, we have a website.
We do have a website?
Yeah,
that's right.
batshitpodcast.com.
See, that's awesome.
Or if you don't want to type in the word shit, it's living-with-mental-illness.com.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
But batshitpodcast.com. But we have a contact form on there.
Yep, so you can reach out to us that way too. Yeah. Share this with anyone who needs it. Please keep listening. Please keep sending questions. Please keep sending us comments. Thank you. We love you. Keep fighting.